Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoy this video. For more content, please support us by subscribing.
This last week, I typed a single word into Google and wanted to see how many results there were. The word was war, and there was almost 6 billion references to it on the internet. I looked at some of the images of individuals, of armies, as they're striving to accomplish their goal. I saw images of cities desolated, destroyed, being burned, and armies suffering losses. Those images are really found anciently as well. Assyria would put these type of images and carve them into walls as a way of propaganda to let you know that they are the superpower, and if you did not submit to them, they'd take you out. In their reliefs, you would see images of kings being submissive, surrendering, becoming vassals under the protection of the Assyrian king. You'd also see images, and it was really a lot of propaganda, that if you didn't submit, we'd take you out. Not only would we kill, but we'd torture you before you died. They are the power, and they let you know it. And above their images, they write inscriptions. And the inscriptions say some things like this. Now, these next two quotes are from kings off the walls about cities and people that had rebelled. And here's what they said. I flayed as many nobles as had rebelled against me, and draped their skins over piles of corpses. Some I spread out with a pile. Some I erected on stakes upon the pile. I flayed many right through my land, and draped their skins over the walls. With their blood I dyed the mountain red like red wool, and the rest of them the ravines and torrents of the mountains swallowed. I carried off captives and possessions from them. I cut off the heads of their fighters, and built with the heads a tower before their city. I burnt their adolescent boys and girls. The Assyrian cavalry was powerful, and they would just essentially run through an enemy. And in these images, you saw that that's what would happen to you. And I can imagine just being there in the capital of Assyria, cooling my heels, waiting to be able to maybe talk to the king. I'm thinking, okay, do I submit? Do I not? Do I have a chance against this army? And I'm looking up, and here's what I'm seeing. And I'm seeing images of the Assyrian army going against cities, besieging them, and taking them over. When Isaiah talks to the king of Judah, that's the background. You have up north the superpower, Assyria. And Assyria, many years, most years, almost every year for one king, they go out into the field, they take their army to pillage. Sometimes they're dealing with people who have rebelled, but sometimes it's just, we got to get more loot. And so in 734, it seems that they've taken this little red line down the coast, and they've conquered this whole area. And if you're the king of Syria, or you're the king of the northern tribes, you realize it may be just a matter of time before they're coming down your way too. These two kings make a coalition, and they want Israel, this king of Judah, Ahaz, to join with them. There's some pressuring, and much because the desire is we just don't want to have Assyria take us over. And I just had, because this is kind of cool, this is a clay seal with the inscription, quote, belonging to Ahaz, the son of Jotham, or Jotham, king of Judah. Now this is Syria and the northern tribes, joined together, and they have a war against Judah. At first, it does not go very well at all. The early stages of the war are described in 2 Chronicles 28 and indicate that God gave Ahaz into the hands of Syria. thereby allowing them to defeat Judah's army in battle and take prisoners. Israel's army also inflicted heavy casualties on Judah, killing 120,000 troops at a time when they really couldn't afford it. The king's son, and the person who was second in command to the king. Nevertheless, the two armies of Syria and Israel were never able to defeat the city of Jerusalem. And it's at this point the Lord has Isaiah go and talk to King Ahaz, the king of Judah in Jerusalem, and say this to him. Say unto him, take heed, and be quiet. Fear not, neither be faint-hearted, for the two tails of these smoking firebrands, for the fierce anger of Rezin with Syria and the son of Remaliah. I love God's advice in a time when war seems to be imminent. Be careful. There's not words of don't do anything, but be careful. Keep calm. Fear not. Don't lose heart. Even though you may see these as two great destroying forces, God doesn't see it that way. He sees them as smoking firebrands. His perspective is different than yours. Firebrands like a little stick that's not on fire, it's just smoking. Yeah, they've got some potential there, but that's the way I see them. A lot more smoke than anything else. You'll be okay. You just need to trust in God, and if you do, things work out. Isaiah is told to say, if you will not believe, surely ye shall not be established. I love the New International Version's translation of this verse. If you do not stand firm in your faith, you will not stand at all. I also love where Isaiah is asked to go to give this message. Where he's asked to go is the Repositories, the upper pool of water that supplies the water for Jerusalem. It's the water source. We're not sure why he's there, but he may be inspecting it. But he goes there, and while he's there, the message is delivered. And the upper pool is located about 700 yards from Jaffa Gate. It's on the highway leading to the fuller's field. It's a position near water for washing of clothes previous to drying and bleaching, and was probably along the aqueduct. There are two interesting images in this verse. Fuller, to make white, and the spring. The fuller makes the ordinary cloth white or pure, and the spring provides water essential for life in Jerusalem. In other words, there's a source that can purify us and lead us to life eternal. I also make a side note. Isaiah could have said to Ahaz, hey, think about all the bad things you're doing. You're not a righteous king. Here's all the idolatry you're doing. Here's the wickedness you're doing. But God doesn't. Sometimes we may be tempted to point out someone's sins, their weaknesses. And in this conversation, God only elects to give hope. God even says, Ahaz, if you want a sign, I'll give you a sign. You ask, heaven above, earth beneath, I'll ask you for a sign. Ahaz is a little condescending, quotes scripture and says, I don't tempt God. No, I'm not going to ask him for a sign. And then we have the great Emmanuel prophecy afterwards, because God will give a sign to you, a sign of hope, a sign that will make pure, a sign that will purify and make everyone clean. The Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive, and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. So the context and the background of all this is the threat of war. And it's real. When war threatens, God gives encouragement to us to stand firm in our faith, or you will not stand firm at all. Be careful. Keep calm. Don't be afraid. Don't lose heart. God is the source of hope and life. But Isaiah also includes that if you reject God, you will lose his protection. And for Isaiah, he promises that if you reject God, with arrows and bows shall men come, and the land shall become briars and thorns. I have wondered why Nephi quotes this chapter. It's in a series of chapters, and you could just say, well, he just got on a roll and just kept reading. But if you think about what's happening among the Nephites right now, and you go back several chapters, in chapter 5, Nephi summarizes 40 years and says, "And it sufficeth to me to say that 40 years had passed away, and we had already had wars and contentions with our brethren." Nephi quotes this because he's applying it or likening it to his people. Maybe they are threatened with war. Maybe they feel a little bit overwhelmed. And he wants to give God's assurance and promises that there is hope and protection in God, not in armies or navies. He wants to remind his people to have the moral courage to stand firm in obeying God's will, even if you have to stand alone. If you do not stand firm in your faith, you will not stand at all. Thanks for spending a little time with me in Brother Miller's Notes. I remember I do have a Bible or verse-by-verse commentary on all these verses in this chapter at brotherrmiller.wordpress.com. Hope you have a great day. Keep smiling.